Hi, it's Sharna back again with a new card, this time featuring some Avery Elle products. This is the new Astronaut stamp set, and I'm going to go ahead and do a Distress Oxide background. Those are the colors I'm using, and I'm starting with a blue base. But first let's get into the coloring. All the colors are shown with the lids of the markers on top. I always start with the darkest color, it's just easier for me. I find my blending works out better if I map out the shadows first. Otherwise, I have a tendency to get too heavy-handed. And so I'm just going in where I think that there would be some shadows from his helmet and his hair, or her hair. I mean, you can't tell, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and blend that out. So I started with the E21 and then moved to the E11, and then I'm finishing with the I think it's quadruple zero for a highlight. And now on to the next combo. This is the hair. It's like a strawberry blonde color is what I chose to do. And I started with the YR24. Again, mapping in my shadows. I'm only leaving a very little bit of room for highlights because there's, just the bangs showing here. And just a light highlight on top. And then for the cheeks, I'm going to add a little bit of R20. And moving on to some shading for the spacesuits. I decided to go with the classic gray. I'm going to start with the deepest shadows, and that would be C5. And I'm just right now mapping out where I would want the darkest parts to be, the creases, underneath the arms, underneath the helmet, the places that I feel like would be in the darkest shadow, between the legs, under the knees, that sort of thing. And the suits are going to end up gray and the helmet's going to end up white, but I am going to use the same grays on the helmet to give a little bit of a dimension. And now I'm just blending out that darkest gray with a C3, pulling those shadows out some more, and this is where I start on the helmet. I did use some of the darkest inside. There's like an inner part of the helmet by their faces. And so I'm just going to keep blending that out. And then I'm going to fill everything in with my lightest color, and that would be C0 on the suit. And just by leaving that top part of the helmet white, does make the helmet appear white. But it does have some roundness to it because the shadow's underneath the chin and around the side. I decided that I was going to go with the same colors for the gloves and the boots. I just added a C7 as my darkest, and then I'm going to blend out with the C5 just to differentiate them from their outfits. And they're such small areas, I only use 2 colors, makes it easier. I wanted them to appear black but not be black. And then I'm trying to decide what colors I want to use on the rocket ship balloon. So I got out the lightest of the colors for my C colors, and that would be the C3 and the C0 again. Just putting a shaded side down. And then using the lightest color on a majority of it. I did want it to feel sort of like a balloon. So instead of putting the details in, I just kind of did it all that mylar color, that kind of shiny silver color. And then we're moving on to the details on their spacesuits. I went with a blue. just to go with the background. So that would be, believe I started with a B02, and then a B00, and then a B quadruple 0, just to blend it out. And I did each of them the same. Oh, and I realized I missed a spot. So I'm just doing the same thing on this other guy really quickly so that they match. I decided to do less of a highlight, so I'm pulling in that medium color just a little bit farther than I did previously. And now I'm going to fill in this little, I don't know what it is actually, the buttons on the front of the suit. Oh, and there's space helmets. I tried to make it look like glass, so I did add a tinge of blue with that lighter blue over the whole thing, even over their faces, like you're looking at them through the glass of the helmet. And then I used the same blues to do the frosting on the cake that the moon is holding. And I decided to do the cake in chocolate because that's my favorite. And I did those in E27, E25, and E23, which are some very warm browns. And then for the moon, I didn't want to add more gray, so we're going to go with the BG72 for the shadows, and then the BG70 to really blend that out. Just for some cool shadows on the moon. I didn't want to leave him completely white. He's so cute. I just love his little smiley face. I need more planets to add to this set. Elena, if you're watching, please make planets to go with this set. And then I'm just taking my Jelly Roll pen to add highlights onto the helmets so that it's shiny like glass. I'm just trying to decide if I want to add anywhere else on the spacesuits. It's a little hard to see, especially because they're so light. You can see it more in real life. So let's move on to the blending. And I start with the light blue cardstock. It just makes it easier to me instead of blending into white. It's just less ink that I have to put down. I don't know what it is about doing it, but I really have gravitated now towards using the colored cardstocks as the bases. Even if I cover the whole thing, if I miss a spot or it's not blended quite correctly, it's so much easier on the colored cardstock. And then moving on to the next darkest shade, which is Mermaid Lagoon. And just going around the edges again. I'm not bringing it in as far as I did with the first one, so it'll give it a little like ombre effect. And it's really highlighting that center, which is where all the images are going to go. Just kind of why I'm doing this like radial gradient instead of starting at one end or the other. I wanted the highlight to mostly be in the middle. And I wanted to do something different as far as a space theme went. I didn't want to do the typical black. This card is probably going to be for my son, and he's 5. And I'm taking the darkest color now around the edges. I believe this is Chip Sapphire. But I wanted something that felt a little bit cartoony. I don't know if that's the right word, but I wanted something that was a little bit more light and airy than the black. So I chose all blues. And it really doesn't matter if your blending is perfect at this point, because we're going to be splattering this whole thing. And I am trying to smooth it out just a little bit, so I'm going back to the next lightest color and pulling that in. And now I got my splat box out and my brush. It really doesn't matter which brush, I just picked it because it was a larger size. Now I'm splattering with some water. And then I took some Karitake Gansai sparkling watercolors here and some of the Lawn Fawn sparkling splatter stuff. I really love how it turned out. I did mostly keep the splatters to the edges. And I'm just getting a little bit of a sentiment, trying to plan out where I'm going to put everything. I did heat emboss this on black. I do like the detail on this embossing powder. It works even on sentiments like this that are generally smaller and closer together. And I'm just taking a little rag to dust that off. And I think I got everything laid out where I want it. And I'm just going to take a couple of these foam squares on the back. Now, I liked it when I originally laid it out, and then I'm going to screw it up right here. So I'm going to not have the spacing the way I like it, because I put him a little bit too far down on the page, even with the balloon. It's going to end up feeling a little bit awkward with this big space in the middle. So I will show you how I fix that in a minute. So I'm trying to scrunch it over a little bit. Since I know I'm not mailing this, I am not minding using all this foam tape. So I got out some silver stars to fill in all the gaps here, in and around my images and around the sentiment. And when I'm placing sequins, I generally like to pick a direction and kind of scatter them diagonally across the card, so either left to right or right to left. Just however way my images feel like they're leaning. And I try and make sure that I have an odd number of sequins. Not always, but sometimes. It's just more pleasing to the eye, as they say. And then I use liquid glue to add it to my card base, just because I can never line things up right. So that's it. And I hope you enjoyed. See you again soon.